Well, for the last 10 days, we've considered the impact of Jesus upon much of the world. However, you might say that might all be true, but did he even really exist? Aren't these aspects of our culture and our way of life based on a myth, on a legend? The British philosopher Bertrand Russell certainly thought so. He once said this: "Historically, it is quite doubtful Jesus ever existed at all. And if he did, we do not know anything about him." Well, Bertrand Russell died 50 years ago. What do people today think? A survey conducted in 2016 reported that 22% of people in the UK think that Jesus was a mythical figure. 17% are unsure whether he was real or not. However, let me say to you today, and you can check this out for yourself, the issue of whether Jesus ever existed is not a seriously contested issue. For mainstream academics today, Christian and non-Christian alike, one writer puts it like this: "For mainstream academics, the view that Jesus never existed belongs in the same category as those who claim that the moon landings were a hoax." A British historian says this: "Any doubts cast on whether Jesus ever existed are unworthy of serious attention." The first-hand information that we have about Jesus is found in the Bible. Did you know that all 4 Gospels of the New Testament were written within 65 years of Jesus' ministry? The epistles of the Apostle Paul in the New Testament were written even closer to the life of Jesus. Those who do historical research would agree that the closer written documents are to the events that they describe, and the more of them there are to compare, the greater their reliability. Now, this means the evidence of Jesus is incredibly strong, especially in comparison to other historical figures. For example, we have more and better historical evidence for the life of Jesus than for Julius Caesar's crossing of the Rubicon, a major event in the history of the Roman Empire, and an event that nobody questions. Now, you might object and say, okay, very well, but the Gospels are biased. They were written by Christians, and therefore we can't trust them. They were written by the friends of Jesus. But that's not a great argument. Almost 20 years ago, I got married. Do you believe me? I can tell you that we were married in Cardiff. We had our photos in Caerphilly Castle. And then we had a reception in Mysakamma. Now, how could you check out those facts for yourself? How could you check to see if I'm telling the truth? Well, I could point you in the direction of some eyewitnesses. I could point you towards people who were there. Would you really say to me, hang on, I don't trust these witnesses. Half of them are your family and the other half are your friends. They'll be biased. And so you see, the argument doesn't really hang together. But if you insisted on having witnesses to the life of Jesus outside of the New Testament, well, there are plenty. Tacitus, Josephus, Pliny. None of those historians were Christians, but they all mention Jesus in their writing. And therefore, there is no real doubt as to the historicity of Jesus Christ. He really was born, and he really did live. He really is a true figure of history. Listen to these words of one New Testament scholar. He says this: "The idea that Jesus never existed is something that no ancient historian would take seriously for a minute. All sorts of evidence points back to the certainty of this figure, and particularly his crucifixion."